Welcome to Clearing the Clutter Inside and Out with Julie Coraccio. Every Tuesday at 1 p.m., Julie interviews experts on all areas of clutter: physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual. Learn easy-to-implement tips on how to release clutter and get organized to create the life you choose, deserve, and desire. An award-winning professional organizer and coach, Julie also shares suggestions to help you live clutter-free for a more joyful and fulfilling life. Looking to change your life? Are you ready to release all your clutter, physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual? Our Declutter Your Life is a year-long how-to, go-at-your-own-pace workbook course to guide you through the process of clearing clutter. Also available by 3-month individual topic. Learn more at reawakenyourbrilliance.com.
Hey everyone, today we're reaching into the archives. I really was planting the seeds for clearing the clutter inside and out when I look back at some of my interviews for Reawaken Your Brilliance. Jill Chivers is about shopping less and living more. If we shop less and live more, not only does it decrease physical clutter, but it also decreases our clutter in every area. So sit back, relax, and enjoy. Hey everyone! What does it mean to unconsciously shop? Why do so many of us do it? What's the underlying emotional thread going on? What are the signs to notice if you are doing this? What did our guest expert tonight do for an entire year? How did she manage not to shop or buy anything? No clothes, no shoes, no accessories. We're going to talk about that and much, much more tonight. Jill Chivers understands what it's like to shop till you drop and yet still feel it was never enough. Late in 2009, she had one of those corner-turning, light bulb illuminating aha moments. She was spending far too much on clothes and shoes, bags, belts, earrings, and all other adornments for the body. She acknowledged she did not have a handle on her spending. She didn't know why she spent like she did and started to feel bad about the new things she was buying. On December 15, 2009, she started a 12-month challenge to shop her wardrobe and not clothes shop for 1 year. Her year without clothes shopping changed her. For 18 years, she worked in the corporate world as a highly skilled, experienced, and sought-after facilitator, group leader, trainer, and coach. She lives on the Sunshine Coast, Queensland, Australia, with loved ones of both the human and furry variety and loves to travel. Welcome, Jill.
Thank you, Julie, for having me. It is a sincere sensation to be here.
We're excited to have you. You're our first Australian guest, and I want to give out a shout to Geraldine Thomas, who I see is on chat, because you had done a guest blog for Geraldine, and that's what led me to you. And I'm so excited to have you here tonight because I think, excuse me, a lot of times people talk about sex addiction or alcohol and drugs, but shopping's an addiction in itself, but it's something that we don't talk about a lot, or we just kind of dismiss and poo-poo, but it really is something. So tell us briefly about this year when you did no shopping for clothes.
Making that decision was monumental for me. I had been a champion shopper, an Olympic level shopper. I could shop anywhere, anytime, and I did. I shopped around the world. I shopped away Friday afternoons, Sunday lunchtimes. I really had taken my love and ability to shop to a professional level. And my shopping started to spiral out of control in 2009, where I started to feel really bad about the shopping that I was doing. So instead of it being a mostly positive thing, although my consciousness around it was fairly low, it started to become something that made me feel bad. Every time I brought something new home, I would have this underlying feeling of guilt about why did I bring one more thing into my wardrobe when it is already stuffed to the gills, and I had, and still have to a degree, a large wardrobe. So at the end of 2009, I was driving home from doing the grocery shopping, and this thought appeared literally like, a bird on a fence post. You need to stop shopping. And I really tried to push that thought away. It had come to me in various other forms, and I'd been very successful in ignoring it. But in early December 2009, it became unignorable. And by the time I got home from that grocery shopping trip, I had pretty much decided that I wanted to do that. And the emotion that gripped me was fear. I was terrified of taking a year off from clothes shopping. And that was a sign to me that I had to do it, that there was so much charged emotion around doing this thing, about abstaining from this activity. I knew it was important, and I knew that if I didn't do it, I would be forever having this albatross around my neck, this unconsciousness around a habit that was starting to do me harm. So that was really how it all began, and where I started my journey, with a lot of fear and a lot of trepidation.
A lot of guests that we've had on the show have talked about how it was worse to have that fear than go through the fire, so to speak, because once they kind of went through that, they were like, oh my gosh, I've been holding on to that and afraid, but once I finally did it, it was 1,000 times easier than I would have expected it.
Yeah, my year had some tough moments in it, and it wasn't all easy, but certainly I thought, I can't live with this feeling anymore, this heavy feeling like I'm carrying around an awkward box all the time, and I'm too afraid to put it down, open the lid and have a look inside, and I wonder what would happen if I did that. And for me, it was a very courageous thing to do, and I'm so glad that I did.
What did you discover during this year?
I discovered that there were some drivers to my shopping that were making it unconscious, and that without stepping into the light of awareness, that nothing would ever change for me. And one of my biggest fears was around what was driving my shopping. And I had no awareness of my personal drivers, nor did I have any awareness of the broader drivers that affect a lot of women when they shop too much. And that was probably one of my biggest learnings, was around the fact that there are triggers, there are drivers to shopping in general, and specifically what mine were. Equally important, I discovered it is possible to change. I think that there can be a belief that a leopard can't change its spots, and that once you have an entrenched set of behaviours around something like this, that real change is impossible. And I discovered that it was indeed possible. And that was really important, because in the work that I do, I meet many women who aren't sure that they will ever be able to loosen the hold that shopping has on them. And my message to them is, you certainly can. It's taken a long time to get to the place you are now, so it's not going to happen immediately, but it is possible. And the third important learning, and this was critical for me, is that it is okay to love clothes. My love of clothes and getting dressed up and getting dressed in the morning hasn't changed one iota in the last 3 or 4 years. What has changed is the way I go about expressing myself through clothing, the way I go about introducing a sense of novelty, newness, uniqueness, fun into the way that I get dressed every day, and certainly my consumption patterns have radically changed, but I still love clothes. I didn't want to step into that minimalism space where I got rid of 90% of my wardrobe and ended up with 30 items. That was not my goal. And I meet a lot of women who love clothes, and that's a fear they have, that they're going to be told they have to strip away all the things that they love to wear.
Well, you're a woman after my own heart. You can never have. I'm not a big shopper, but I love leopard print. And God love my fiance. I think I wore some form of it our first 5 dates, and I thought, if he can hang with that, he's the guy for me. Now, we've got a question from Geraldine I want to ask for you. She would like you to repeat the definition of wholeness.
The definition of wholeness. For me, wholeness is about feeling your life fully and having a sense that you have enough, that you are enough, and that there is nothing out there that is going to complete you. And for me, specifically in relation to shopping, that was really critical, because the messages that we are on the receiving end of in stores and in advertising, etc., is that the thing that's going to complete you is out there waiting to be purchased. And to me, that is a message I have deliberately chosen to tune out, because nothing out there is capable of giving me that sense of wholeness, that sense of fullness. And shopping my wardrobe for a year was one of the pathways to connecting in that sense of wholeness. And I believe it is our natural birthright to feel that sense of wholeness. And part of our access to it is about removing things sometimes.
Now, why do you think, and I should ask this first, in clients that you work with, I would say it would be a problem, or not a problem, a challenge for women mainly, but do you see compulsive shopping with men?
It is an equal opportunity affliction, and it does affect men. I personally don't work with men because I wanted my site to specifically be about clothes shopping, not about other kinds of shopping. And what's also interesting about men and over shopping is men tend to view themselves as collectors. So, if they have a huge amount of electronic goods or, a particular item that they have been collecting, that's how they see it, that they are curating something that is of interest, potentially even has a legacy, something that can be passed on, whereas women don't tend to see themselves in that same way as being collectors. They often self-refer as shopaholics, lightheartedly, jokingly. But yeah, shopping certainly affects men. The research, which is loose in this area, tends to suggest it does affect more women than men, but it certainly affects men.
I'm laughing. Amnon, our producer, is chuckling. The guy has more electronics than Imelda Marcos.
Jill, we're buying things that we need.
Right. Okay, excellent, good.
Good answer. So why do you think so many women unconsciously shop? What's going on with women?
Well, there's a whole stack of things going on with women, and there is a full range of emotional drivers that can drive a woman to unconsciously and compulsively shop. And I've come to appreciate what mine were, and I've also been extremely honoured to have women share with me some of their drivers. And the range of triggers and drivers for over shopping can be things like boredom. They don't have enough stimulation in their lives, and so shopping offers an enormous opportunity for a lot of stimulation. There's a lot of activity and variety happening in a shopping environment, and that can be one of the reasons that some women shop. I know other women who shop because they're lonely. They don't have enough connection in their life, and shopping offers what seems like an easy way to connect with others, or certainly as a way to mask feelings of loneliness and feelings of isolation, because you are literally surrounded when you're in a shopping environment. Another one I find with women of my own vintage and older, I'm 43, is around feelings of attractiveness and remaining attractive and still being in the game, if you like. And shopping offers an opportunity to remind ourselves that we can be up to date and we can still be attractive, whatever that means to us, if we continue to add to our wardrobes and remain up to date. I know women who shop for revenge, who they're angry and they have feelings of rage, and shopping is a way to ameliorate those feelings, at least in the short term. The thing about all of those drivers for shopping is they don't last. They wear off far too quickly, and it is literally like that line in Confessions of a Shopaholic where she says, I have to do it again, and that's why shopping as an antidote to all of those emotional drivers is so inadequate.
What are some of the signs that someone's a compulsive shopper? Because you have to know you have a problem and recognize it before you can correct it. And yes. I hate to shop. And, it's interesting hearing you talk before, because I would rather get a root canal. I've kind of have gotten over that and I've learned what looks good on me and so work with that. But for me, it's overstimulating. It's too much. But if someone out there is listening, what are some signs that they might be a compulsive shopper?
Excellent question. There are a few things. One is that you keep adding and adding and adding and adding to your wardrobe. That the thought of any length of time, and for you that might be a day or a week or a month, without this behaviour, instills in you some sense of fear or trepidation, or some sense of no way could I go that length of time without shopping. That is an indicator that it has become a compulsion for you, that the thought of doing without it fills you with so much fear. Another thing to look for is go into your closet and see how many items have still got tags on them. That's another thing that you're continuing to accumulate without the concomitant use of those items. And so how many things are still have tags on them, or how many things are buried in your closet. One of the women that joined our program discovered a bag full of 20 t-shirts. She bought all in one sitting, and she'd put the bag in the bottom of her closet and forgotten all about it. And during the process of our year, we encourage women to do what's called a weekly wardrobe warrior session, where you would address one part of your wardrobe and explore what's in it and what's working and what's not. And she discovered this bag, 20 t-shirts. So that's another sign that you can look for. Another thing is where shopping and emotions are tied together, that if you are triggered in some way, and of course this presupposes that you have some awareness of your emotional state, you're able to see yourself and the emotions that you're experiencing. But if you have a triggering emotion, like you're feeling anxious or angry or worried or any of those kinds of things, and your response to that is to go shopping, that can also be indication that it's become your go-to activity to mask or smooth any emotions that are uncomfortable or painful for you. So there are a handful of the kinds of things. And it isn't formulaic. If you add this plus this plus this, it means you're a shopaholic. It really is a combination of a few of those different things, and really your own experience of your life and where shopping fits into that, and whether shopping has become your favourite or your only hobby.
Mm-hmm. We've got a question here from Geraldine. Actually, we have a couple questions here for you, but I want to remind everyone, if you have a question, call in at 919-518-9773 or Skype computers 2K voice, or ask on chat, and I'm happy to ask. First question from Geraldine. Does Jill think TV shopping takes advantage or provides a service? Good question.
You mean like shows like TVSN, shopping networks, that kind of thing? I presume that's what Geraldine is referring to.
Geraldine, let us know. I believe so, but if not, I'm sure she'll type in.
To me, those kinds of shows are facsimiles for other shopping environments where you have to physically go to them, or say online shopping. They're all facsimiles of one another because they provide a similar experience. They provide exposure to products, exposure to messages around those products, and then an opportunity to purchase those. And so in that regard, television shopping shows have a similar function to stores, advertising, merchandising, messages online, those kinds of things. If you have a predisposition or a certain vulnerability to those kinds of messages, then that kind of television show is going to be tempting to you and potentially harmful to you, because it's offering so many opportunities to feel empty, to feel that sense that something is missing. And this item, the one that's being promoted now, the one where the sparkly thing is being turned in a 360-degree way, and we're seeing all the things, and then we've got the celebrity endorser, and that thing, if I buy it, is going to feel this inside of me. And there is no amount of sparkly things or black boots or animal print jackets that can fill that hole. There just isn't enough on the planet to do that. So in that regard, I don't think television shows are any more harmful, except for the access issue. We have much easier access to that, whereas going to a store requires, getting out of our pajamas, driving there or walking there, and being much more active, whereas television shopping networks, our access to them is a little bit more ready and perhaps passive.
We've got a question here from Sally Mae. We touched on this earlier, Sally Mae. Jill works exclusively with women, but perhaps you can answer that. She says, my husband, Pack Rat, did the same things work for men as women? You have a thought on that?
Yes, basically the same process is in place for anybody who has a compulsion to overshop, which starts with awareness and a recognition of the place that this behaviour has in your life, and then putting in place some behaviours that will correct that behaviour so that it leads you to the place that you want to go. So those things are completely independent of age and gender and a whole stack of other factors. The specificity of that is what's so interesting, which is why our program is all about clothing, because that was something I knew an awful lot about. I wanted to delve into that aspect as opposed to other kinds of over-shopping that can be done.
Now, you say that shopping your wardrobe is an attitude. What do you mean by that?
Well, shopping your attitude is two things. One, it's a behaviour, it's things that you do, but the attitude part of it is shifting your attention from out there, all the things that are available for purchase that will complete me or make me feel younger or more attractive or whatever it is, and shifting that attention to in here, to what I already have, to the clothing that I already possess, to the way that I'm wearing them, to thinking new ways about those clothing items and wearing them in a different way, tapping into what you already have. And in a way, that's a metaphor for tapping into the overall fullness that is already in your life. Those of us in the Western world, in the main, we have so much on so many levels. And when we turn our attention to shopping, we really tap into what's missing. what we don't have, that if we had it, we would somehow feel better about ourselves. And my suggestion is that we're never going to be satiated, ever. That's always going to tap into what's missing. And when you shift your attention and your attitude is on what do I already have, suddenly those messages aren't so appealing, and they become, with time, easier and easier to ignore.
Talk about the shopping and the 6 human needs.
One of the things I enjoy doing on my blog, and I blog every week, is to relate shopping to other things, because shopping can seem like a fairly everyday topic. It might even seem a little bit bland, or perhaps it seems a little bit superficial to some people, whereas I think our consumption patterns often have a lot of complexity to them. And one of the things I like to do is relate shopping to other things, other philosophies. So Anthony Robbins came up with the 6 human needs, and I wrote a blog posting about that. So the 6 human needs that he identified were certainty, variety, significance, growth, contribution, and connection. And I wrote a 2-part blog posting about how our shopping relates to those things. So if you're shopping and certainty, what's that about? If you're shopping to meet the need of certainty, how would that show up? What would that look like? And so on for the other of those 6 human needs. And it was a really good intellectual exercise for me, but it was really helpful to readers as well to say, oh, I'm shopping for growth. I'm shopping to, meet a goal that I have about my image or branding or all those kinds of things. So that was what that 2-part blog posting was about.
So how can someone become free of that constant shopping bug? I got to go shop.
Yeah, it's a multi-part thing. And one of the things we talk about is for women who have overshopped for years, sometimes it's decades, the first thing to recognise is this is an entrenched behaviour that is not going to disappear overnight. Like if you have been an overeater or done anything else to excess, that turning that behaviour around so that it is firstly more conscious and secondly more healthy is going to be a long-term process that has multiple steps in it. And that's important to recognise, because for folks who have been dealing with something like this, to then start to change it, they often feel that if it doesn't happen immediately, they'll lose faith. They will lack motivation to stick at something. And that's often what got them into the overshopping hole in the first place, was that they had a sense of immediate gratification, and shopping seemed to meet that need. So anything that's going to require some time is obviously going to have some challenge to it. But without recognition of that, you can quickly lose momentum with something like this. So that's important. The other thing about overshopping is, depending on the severity of the issue, there can often be feelings of shame that are attached with that, or certainly embarrassment. And often people around us have no idea the extent to which shopping has taken up our thoughts and our feelings and our behaviour. And so being aware that we want to be conscious with whom we share that we have an over-shopping problem is also important, because it can be belittled, it can be reduced, it can be laughed at, it can be misunderstood, and you want to make sure that if you're going to start changing these behaviours, that you have the support that you need. And sometimes those around us aren't really the best people to help us with that, certainly not in the short term. And then we move into awareness and recognising the place that shopping has. One of the key things that I suggest to people fairly early on in their journey back from over shopping is to start a list of other things you love to do. And often that starts off as other things I quite like to do, because nothing is as exciting or interesting as shopping. But when you start to write down the other things that you like to do, and perhaps they're things that you lost touch with recently, but things you enjoyed doing when you were younger, or before shopping took up this huge part in your life, and when you feel a compulsion to shop, go to that list, pick something and do it. And it's amazing how over time you can start to look forward to those things as opposed to shopping. And I liken it to someone whose favourite afternoon snack is something sugar-filled and processed. And if you start to replace that behaviour with eating something fresh, like fresh fruit or some fresh, nuts or dried fruit, then eventually your system starts to crave that fresh snack. It's not going to happen tomorrow, it's not going to happen next week, it may not even happen for months. But eventually you will start to look forward to behaviours that really lift your spirit and make you feel good beyond the immediate hit and those kinds of things can be very helpful in your journey back from over shopping.
I want to remind everyone, if you have a question for Jill, call in at 919-518-9773, Skype Computers 2K Voice, or ask on chat, and I'll be happy to ask her. How can shopping less give us more style?
Personal style is one of my favorite topics, and to me, personal style is completely different to fashion. Fashion is all about the externals of what has been purported to be hot right now or new right now, trends, that kind of thing. And in the main, I think a lot of that information bears very little relevance to the ordinary woman's life, which is filled with a whole stack of other things besides what's hot right now in fashion. And personal style is about expressing who you are through the way you dress and the way that you put together. And because it is an endless feedback loop, it's also around using clothing to help inform who you are or to shift your mood if you want to use clothing in that way. And the more your attention is on the fashion scene, the less your attention is on who am I being today, and how can I use clothing as a way of expressing that uniqueness that is me on this particular day. And so I advocate looking more at your personal style and what feels like you, and using that as a way to get dressed, as the impetus for getting dressed for the day. And for me, it's animal printed. That has been my signature personal style for some time. Now I wear it every single day, and when I wear it, I feel like I'm expressing something about who I'm being for that day.
How can we, I love that. I think that's so true and so important. And I think once I kind of figured out what my style is somewhat, it makes it easier, but you're more confident in it. You don't have the need to go out and buy as much. And I do, when I wear leopard print, it always puts me in a good mood. But it's like, makes me feel powerful. It really does.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
How can we consciously shop?
Conscious shopping is about feeling good about the shopping you do before, during, and after a shopping trip. And those of us who have overshopped can get tripped up in any one of those three phases or all three of them. And the before part is being aware that you're about to go shopping, that it's a conscious thing that you're going to do. You didn't just find yourself in a mall. And as an overshopper, that happened to me a lot, that it was almost like I was in some sort of fug before I got there, and I would wake up like I was in a movie, and there I'd be in a mall shopping, buying things, bags in my hand. And so that's the first part of it, is being aware that you're going to go shopping, you have a particular legitimate identified need. I advocate shopping with a list for that very reason, particularly if you've been prone to over shopping, because you can often be particularly lured in by attractive table displays, window displays, merchandising and marketing messages. And so the before part is about, what do I need? How long am I going shopping for? How much do I have to spend? Those kinds of things. The during part is being really focused and aware of where you are, how much time has passed, what you've purchased, what your feeling state is. Even simple things like, am I tired or hungry, can interfere with your ability to be conscious in your shopping, because those emotional states can really distract you, and you can end up buying more because you weren't paying attention. And even little things like using the shopping trolley in big department stores. Shopping trolleys have gotten bigger in the last 10 years, and research suggests we spend 41% more when we use a shopping trolley than if we carry things in our hands or we use a basket. Obviously not appropriate in a grocery store, but certainly in places like department stores, being aware that if you have a trolley put things into, you may end up spending more because you fill it up. And so, they're the kinds of things you could be aware of during. The after part is feeling really happy with everything that you've purchased. Another bit of research is that 41% of women hide purchases from their partners. Personally, that may be a little bit low. And I have a very supportive husband that I didn't feel a great need to hide things from. I certainly hid some things from him, and a lot of women will probably be able to relate to, a partner or a friend saying, "Oh, that's a lovely item that you're wearing. Is that new?" And saying, "Oh no, this old thing, I've had it for ages." And that's why over shopping can lead to behaviours of deception and just flat out lying when you minimalise the newness of something or how much shopping has taken up in your life. And so being aware that after, you want to feel good, you want to feel clean, you want to feel clear about everything that you've purchased, and feel happy to tell people that you've purchased that item. And if you don't feel that way, it's certainly worth reviewing what place that particular item has had, and how you came to purchase something that you now feel the need to hide.
I think that's an excellent point. Can you talk a little bit about sustainable style? First of all, define that, maybe if someone out there listening or watching doesn't know what that means, but talk about that.
Sustainable style means a couple of things to me. One, it is a personal thing about your own sense of style and having a signature look and using your own wardrobe so that you're expressing who you are on a regular basis and tapping first into what you already have. So that's the first part of sustainability. The second part is about our relationship to the environment and some of the ethical considerations that come with clothing that we buy. And certainly the recent tragedy in Bangladesh, where all those hundreds of people lost their lives in a sweatshop that is in a building that was never intended to be used as a production place for clothing, drew global awareness to the conditions in which some of our clothing is being produced. And fast fashion is certainly one of the things to be aware of, where our clothing is produced, whether it is produced under fair trade conditions, whether the people who are producing those items are being paid fairly, treated fairly, and all of those kinds of things, raising our awareness about where our clothing comes from. And if we're buying a t-shirt that costs $6, where else in the value chain, in the supply chain, are other people paying? Because for us as a consumer to pay so little for an item, somewhere further back on the supply chain, somebody is paying a fairly high price for us to be able to purchase at such a low price. And so that's another aspect of sustainable style.
So if someone out there is like, okay, I think maybe I have a shopping problem, and maybe I'm going to consider her idea to just shop my wardrobe for a year, or just at least maybe a week or something, when's the best time for them to start that?
That is an individual thing, and I caution against doing it, starting a program of this. Say you're going to take a year without clothes shopping, say starting on January 1. We can often put a lot of pressure on ourselves to do a New Year's resolution. One of our members gave herself a year without clothes shopping, our particular program, as a birthday gift. So she started in August because that was her birthday and birthday month, and she wanted to give this to her as a gift to herself, and that was personally meaningful date for her. And she'd actually tried to do it on her own before she joined her program and had failed on a couple of occasions. And so, picking a date that makes sense to you is also a good idea. The other thing I would say is just start, because there is no perfect time. When I picked December 15, my initial thinking had a Eric of, I'll miss the sales this year. Our December sales are huge here in Australia, but I'll get them next year. That was my thinking, which of course didn't happen. By the time I got to December 15, 2010, I was a changed woman, and the thought of going into an incredibly congested shopping environment was like you were saying about root canal. I certainly didn't want to do that. So just starting can be sometimes the best advice you can get about something like this.
Can you share some success stories about some women you worked with and how their lives have changed?
We've had hundreds of women from all over the world do our Year Without Clothes shopping program, and many more do our shorter course, our 6-week course. And the women who report success stories talk about success on multiple levels. An obvious way to look at success is how much money they save, and most women save thousands of dollars. One of the women who joined our program, the previous 6 months to joining, she'd spent $17,000 on clothing and other related items. And she joined our program because one of my suggestions is to track your spending for at least 1 month. And she thought her expenditure would be about $2,000 over that same period, and it was nearly 10 times that amount. So finance, how much money you save, and in the financial area of your life is certainly one. And for a lot of people, that's enough. Just being able to save $10,000 or $20,000 or more is enough of a reason. Another success area for a lot of women is tapping into this sense of fullness and richness and wholeness, and this sense that I am enough. And that's really important, to be able to identify your own enoughness point, have that not provided to you to say, this is what enoughness looks like. Here's an external measure that your enoughness should measure up to, but to be able to identify what that is for you and to know that you're enough, and that is really an inside job. When you've been suffering from feelings of incompleteness, that you are not enough, that you are not okay, to have that sense and to have discovered it for yourself is life-changing, and it can be a complete game changer for a lot of women who've really never tapped into that feeling before, and they finally have that. And another way that women have success with our programs is just on a purely practical level. They wear more of their clothing, they enjoy more of what they have, they really tap into the hidden mileage that's been lurking in their wardrobe. Now, those clothes got there for a reason. So once they start to play around with them and let go of some of the old rules around clothes, they can find that there's enormous joy in existing clothing.
What is your thought on the fashion industry? This just popped in my head because, we have spring and fall and this constant, and even if you're someone like me that's not really into shopping, you're constantly bombarded with, oh my gosh, you have to have, this is the peplum style or whatever. I was like, I'm horrible in that. But you're constant, what are your thoughts on that? And like the pressure that we receive, and then you can go on the whole other thing about, being thin and looking like a 12-year-old boy. But, what are your thoughts on the whole fashion industry complex?
Well, the first thing is the word you just used, which is it is an industry. It is a multi-billion-dollar industry, a $375 billion a year industry. And that's the first thing to recognise, that however it is dressed up is a profit-making industry, and it thrives on women and men constantly buying things and adding to their wardrobe. And without us as consumers responding to the messages that we're given, then that industry would certainly slow down or have to change in some way. I think a lot of the messages that are given by the fashion industry bear little relevance to the ordinary woman's life. And from that perspective, I advocate being very conscious of the messages that you tune into and being very upfront about ignoring certain messages. And one of the ways you can do that is to stop the catalogues that are thumping in on your porch every day, to unbookmark fashion blog sites and other websites where you can easily look at your wish list of things that you've been accumulating that one day you might want to buy. Those are the kinds of things that you can take control of, so that you are being very conscious about the messages that you are on the receiving end of. And I see the fashion industry as, to me, it's a bit like art. I can look at it and say, wow, isn't that interesting? That has some visual appeal, or it doesn't. But it's not something I particularly want to buy or own myself. So I think we can empower ourselves by tuning out to the messages that don't help us and have no relevance to our lives.
Talk a little bit about sales, because that's something that can get people into a frenzy, or just, maybe they're like, oh, I'm a pretty good shopper, and then I see a sale sign and I go crazy.
Yeah, sale truly is a four-letter word, and combined with the word shoe is probably responsible for a lot of impulse buys that I can certainly relate to, and possibly your viewers can too. Sale gives us a sense that we're getting a bargain, that we're getting something more than the dollar value that we are paying for something. And, it can be an emotion that engenders excitement. It can also tap into the fear of missing out, that if I don't get to that sale, I'm going to miss something. And that something is going to be important to me. And so I advocate being very much aware, if you are susceptible to sales, is to not go to them, because you can come home with a broader range of stuff that you never even knew existed, and you certainly don't want and won't use. And one of my favourite stories is of a family that was shopping in a discount department store. This was in the United States. It was during sale time. It might have been Black Friday, and they had filled their trolley with all this stuff. And they looked at it and they said, we didn't need any of this. And they abandoned their trolley after doing a quick tote up of what it was. And it was something like $450 worth of things that until they had walked into that store and seen sale signs emblazoned everywhere, they had no idea that they even wanted those items. And of course they didn't want them, and they left them there and they went home and were perfectly happy.
Let's talk about your 30-day shop your wardrobe challenge that you do.
I have a couple of freebies on my website. You can sign up and receive our free report about less shopping and more style. And one of the other things under free stuff is a 30-day shop your wardrobe challenge. And it's a download, so you don't have to use your email to get it. And what it's about is providing some practical steps and some inspiration to shop your own wardrobe for 30 days. And so every single day over a 30-day period, if you want to do it consecutively like that, we provide you with a range of different inspiration points that you might want to use over those 30 days. So, day 1 is colours you've never combined before. Day 8 is something daring or exciting. Day 15 is wearing colour on the bottom half, etc., etc. And the way that we suggest that we do it is to either do it over the 30 days exactly as it is, do a couple of days at a time where they explore that particular theme, mix it up, create their own 30-day challenge. But the whole principle behind it is when you start to see and experience your current wardrobe in new and different ways, you can be amazed at how much variety and novelty there is in your existing wardrobe. And so many of us get stuck in what I call set dressing. I always wear this with this with this. So this necklace always gets combined with this blouse, with these pants, etc., etc. And we develop a bit of a uniform and we get bored with it. And we think that the antidote to that is to bringing something new into our wardrobe by buying something. And often a better answer is combining what we have in new and different ways and experimenting with what we already have. So that is the 30-day Shop Your Wardrobe Challenge.
All right, I want to remind everyone, if you have a question for Jill, chat it in or call 919-518-9773 or Skype Computers 2K Voice. So can you just give us some basic tips for shopping that can help people out so they can shop consciously, not overshop, and be happy?
Absolutely. I suggest that you get ready for every shopping trip that you do. And I do this for grocery shopping, let alone anything of more substantial nature. And one of the ways to get ready for shopping is to create a list. And even if you're not a big list user and you leave the list at home, the exercise of creating a list is incredibly powerful and incredibly helpful because it forces you to look at what you already have, where the legitimate gaps are, and you can question those, particularly if you've been an over shopper. It's really good to say, do I really need a pair of black knee-length boots? I already have 2 pair. And so preparing a list is a really great way to become, more conscious in your shopping. I suggest having a budget and I suggest shopping with cash. One of the reasons I suggest shopping with cash is because it connects you to the purchasing decisions and it connects you to that purchasing behaviour in a way that buying with Magic Plastic does not. Even if you're using debit, so it's cash that's already in your account, there's something about paying with a plastic card that disconnects us to that purchase, and we can often underestimate how much we spend when we buy with plastic, whereas cash connects us to our shopping, and the research suggests we spend 20 to 50% more when we shop with plastic than when we shop with cash. That alone can transform your shopping, to say every bit of shopping I'm going to do is going to come out of cash, money I already have. When you're in a shopping environment, I suggest putting a time limit on it so that you're not just drifting around, it becomes the only thing you're doing and you end up spending all Saturday in the mall. But put a time limit on it. Have somewhere that you've got to go. Make an appointment for after shopping so you have to leave. That can be another way to stick to a time limit. There's some of the things that you can do to be more conscious in your shopping and find something else to do that you enjoy doing so that shopping isn't the easy go-to default thing when you're a bit bored or you have a bit of time on your hands, that you actually have a list of other things that you love to do.
That's an interesting statistic, and I love about suggesting cash. So I'm going to have to tell my dad he's doing something right, because in the past couple years, he's really trying to buy, groceries, everything with cash, and a switch to that, and that would be a challenge for me. just because, you get for the ATM card, if you have to stop and, get mascara or whatever it is. But I really think if you're challenged in an area, whatever that area would be, I really like that idea of using cash. Now, an area where I have been challenged, and I think a lot of women are actually purging their wardrobes. So what advice would you have for people to get rid of some stuff in their wardrobe?
Purging is really interesting, and funnily enough, this is one of our other freebies on our website, which is 36 Ways to Cull Your Closet. And I wrote that because, two things. One, I was a bit sick of the traditional advice that if you haven't worn it in 1 year, you should get rid of it. I felt that was a bit limited, and that there would be items in your wardrobe that have not been worn in over a year that have a legitimate place in your wardrobe. The second reason I wrote that free report was I was talking to a friend in Dallas, and she was reviewing her wardrobe, culling it, and she was using personality as the criteria that she was evaluating. Does this feel like me? And I thought that is so interesting, that it's not just have I worn it in 6 months or 12 months or whatever time frame you set, but do I feel great when I wear this item? And so I came up with 36 ways that you can evaluate your wardrobe and decide whether something is going to stay or whether it's going to go. And one of those is, have I worn it in a year? But that is a criteria that may not apply. There may be some other items, some items that need to stay, and time, have I worn it in a year or less, may not be the best way to do it. And whether or not something feels like you is a really great criteria to decide whether you're going to keep something or not.
Now, we have a question here from Sally Mae. What do you think of selling items on eBay? Do you have any thought about eBay or consignment shops for women as a way to purge?
Yes, I think selling items of high quality, particularly if they have some sort of designer element to them, or they have uniqueness in construction or fabric or style or anything like that, is a great way to get a little bit of cash back in. eBay is one, consignment shopping is another. I also advocate just giving things away to charity stores, but being very careful about that. You don't want to give away rubbish that they would consider to be rubbish themselves, because you just create a whole stack of work for charities that are being fueled by volunteer efforts. So you only want to give to charity stores items that somebody might actually wear. So absolutely use consignment stores and eBay. And another thing you can do is hold a clothes swap if you want to get rid of a few things, or attend a clothes swap. There are clothes swapping organisations all around the world. Being aware, and this is something we make our members aware of, that you don't want to exchange shopping for swapping, or swapping for shopping, that you don't want to just replace I'm going out to the mall to buy something new with swapping. But swapping is another great way to get rid of some items and give somebody else some value.
Okay, fantastic. We've got a question here from Geraldine. Great question. Do you think there's a connection between more of us working from home offices yet going out shopping more and buying more?
That is interesting. So the connection, what would that connection be? That we're a bit isolated, we don't have work colleagues that we can stop by their desks and have a chat or go out to lunch with. We have, ready lunch mates like we do when we work in office with other people, and so perhaps our sense of isolation might drive us into a shopping environment because we want a bit of stimulation, we want to be surrounded by other people, and there just happens to be a little boutique that's having a sale. So there is that potential, I suppose, and I've been having a conversation with one of my members who is a graphic designer. She works from home, and online shopping has been one of her downfalls because she uses it as a bit of a break, as a way to, she loves clothes, so she uses it as a way to see what's new, and she often finds herself hitting that buy now button as a result of that. So I think there is the potential. I think if you looked at it from the other side, those of us who have worked in offices, sometimes they are located in shopping districts or close to shopping districts. And I know when I worked for a big global firm that was based in Sydney, I did a lot of damage at lunchtime. And so I think that we can be susceptible to over-shopping behaviours no matter what our working environments are.
Have you reached out to try to help Candy Spelling?
I only know a little bit about Candy Spelling here in Australia from a show that was all about her selling that incredibly large house. It was just impossible to get the proportions of it. So I don't know the specifics of Candy Spelling. We have our own celebrities here in Australia who shop let's call it unconsciously. So no, I haven't contacted those people.
Well, she had, before she sold her mansion, an entire room dedicated to her eBay purchases. I mean, it was just so much, and her home shopping or whatever it was, but a room, and that mansion was, 36,000 square feet or something crazy, but she obviously, I would call her a compulsive shopper without knowing, but a couple questions I always like to ask everyone. The first is, what would you say to someone out there who's really struggling? They might be challenged and they're like, wow, you've gotten a lot of good information, but, I don't know if I can do this. So what advice would you have for someone that's in a really tough spot?
The first thing I would say is I understand. I have had tough spots in my life myself, and I know what it's like to feel there is no hope, there is no point, and that nothing is really worth doing. I understand that personally, and I know how desolate and isolating that feeling can be. So that would be the first thing I would say, is you are not alone, and there would be hundreds of thousands, if not millions of other people who have experienced something similar to you. So if that helps in feeling that others have walked this path or a path similar before you or are walking it alongside of you, that would be the first thing that I would offer. I actually wrote a blog posting about this called Give Up or Go On at a time that was very difficult for me, and I gave 8 suggestions for how you might go through that. And one of the things is, you just do what you can do. Sometimes it's not about making life better, but it's about not making things worse. And that in itself can be a life-changing perspective, to say, I'm actually not looking to improve anything. I'm just not looking to make it any worse. And it's possible for it to be worse. So I'm going to focus on not making it worse. And sometimes you just endure. And it really is what Shakespeare said, this too will pass. And when you can connect in with that and know that there is no such thing as a static set of circumstances, that we are dynamic living creatures, and things will improve, and sometimes it's just hanging on to the pendulum until it swings back in the other direction.
I've got a comment here from Sally Mae. I was apparently way off. The Spelling Mansion was 72,000 feet. So I would think you would,
that makes all the difference in the world.
Potential work for you. Now, just another question just popped in my head. Do you have any thoughts on, because it's interesting, because you're in Australia, and I would say there's a huge problem here with compulsive shopping in America. Would you say, in your experience, that it's just limited to mainly the industrialized, I don't like to use the term first world, but that's where the issue is? And, I wonder, do you see some places like China and India that are really up and coming and changing their economies? Have you seen this issue in their countries?
Well, certainly in developed nations like Australia, the UK, the US, New Zealand, Nordic countries, European countries, etc., the opportunity to overshop is so ready. We don't have to even walk out of our doors to be confronted with a commercial opportunity to spend some money, whereas in emerging economies, that opportunity is perhaps not as prevalent. I see a lot of activity in India where there's a lot of blogs or blog articles and in newspapers about overshopping. So I don't think that the tendency towards overshopping is limited to any particular kind of economic environment. I think the capacity to overshop is vastly different depending on what kind of economic and geopolitical environment that you live in. And so, yes, I do think the behaviours are different because the context is different. But the tendency, I believe, is not limited to, one kind of a person living in one kind of environment versus another.
Fantastic. Thank you. You use words much more eloquently than I did. I'm on day 3 of a juice fast, so not completely here. But one other question I want to ask you, I'm all about taking action with this show. I do this show so people will change their lives. What one step can they take right after the show, before they go to bed, or tomorrow morning, reawaken their brilliance?
To reawaken their brilliance. Everything changed for me when I stopped paying so much attention to everything out there and I tuned into here. And that is an attitude, it is a set of behaviours, it is a constant daily set of actions. Sometimes it's a battle. And so stop paying less attention to what all else is going out there. And some of us who are in the comparison game, and I fall victim to that, it can be incredibly destructive to your sense of well-being when you do that. And tuning into you and what you want and the path you're on and your particular gifts and what you have to contribute, to me, was the road back to sanity and wellness and wholeness.
I love that. That's fantastic. Now, Jill, how can people, first of all, find more information about you? If you have anything upcoming, any webinars, seminars that people might be interested in?
www.shopyourwardrobe.com is where you will find me hanging out a lot of the time. That's also where you'll find all the freebies that I've mentioned and information about our programs. So that would be the first place that I would suggest that you go. Sign up to our free report, and you also get our monthly newsletter where I share with you all kinds of interesting things, including appearing on this show.
Which, thank you. It was a joy to have you. This week, I'm going to challenge you to shop less and live more. Try to do it for a day or even the entire week. Let me know about your experiences and how it helped you in decluttering your life. All right, everyone, go out, clear some clutter to create the life you choose, deserve, and desire.
Looking to change your life? Are you ready to release all your clutter, physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual? Our Declutter Your Life is a year-long how-to, go-at-your-own-pace workbook course to guide you through the process of clearing clutter, also available by 3-month individual topic. Learn more at reawakenyourbrilliance.com. Thanks for tuning in to Clearing the Clutter Inside and Out. Sign up for our newsletter and receive a free copy of 10 clutter-free living tips. Ready to create the life you choose, deserve, and desire? Learn about Julie's coaching, ebooks, online monthly decluttering classes, how to organize your life, office hours, and her unique clutter-free living mastermind at reawakenyourbrilliance.com. You can also watch all episodes on YouTube or download on iTunes and more. Join us next Tuesday at 1 p.m. Remember, the journey of 1,000 miles begins with one step.